My name's Jack, and when I met Rosy, I was a nobody. I was an intern at a law firm in a small town, but she believed in me. She was always telling me I'd make it big one day. So I worked hard. You think when you become a lawyer you'd be swimming in money, but there I was, 2 years in my job, and I was still the intern. My boss hated me. She would always shout at me. And to be fair, I was a mess. I always messed things up. One time, my boss was set to do a huge presentation for our clients, and I accidentally gave her the wrong USB stick. She ended up showing them a video of my cats at home. I was almost fired 3 times in the span of 2 months. But somehow, they never did. Rosie supported me that whole time. I lived in her apartment, and she paid the bills. She was always telling me I'd pay her back when I could, but I never made enough money to do so. One day, my brother visited us, and the two got along so well, it made me really happy. Rosie was already starting to feel like a part of the family. But as soon as Doug left, our problems began. Rosie started comparing Doug and me. And to be honest, that wasn't new. For as long as I can remember, people have always been comparing Doug and I would always lose the comparison. Doug's more handsome, more fit, better at sports, smarter, and now he's vastly more successful than I was. He was a lawyer at some fancy firm in Manhattan, and I was the washed-up middle child brother who, until I met my girlfriend, still lived in our mom's basement. It was no wonder Rosie liked Doug more than me. Everyone usually does. Rosie started complaining. She would complain about the things I can't give her, about the money I wasn't making, about all the places she wanted to go, and how I couldn't afford to take her. So, I took a second job, and then a third. I started saving up, but that money would soon disappear. Rosie never let my jar get full. One day, I would come home exhausted, and I would find that my savings would just be gone, and Rosie would be sitting there with bags upon bags of shopping. What? What are you looking at? I deserve it. I'm your girlfriend. Plus, I've been paying for everything this whole time. Consider this your rent. Except, she hasn't been paying for everything anymore, and she quit her job already. I don't even know where she goes all day anymore. One day, I decided I'd find out. I made sure she found where I'd hidden my jar of cash, and I followed her. She went to a spa, to the mall, and then to a fancy cafe. But when I was certain that was all she was up to, I got in my car and prepared to go home. But then I heard a familiar voice call my girlfriend's name. I turned around and saw my brother. He sat down in front of her and kissed her on the lips, and then they chatted while they held hands. I couldn't believe my eyes. I drove home and cried my eyes out. My world began to crumble. When Rosie came home, I couldn't help but be furious. What were you doing with my brother? Rosie smiled. What? Your brother? What do you mean? You were out. With Doug. I saw you at the cafe. Sweetheart, you must be exhausted or stressed. But are you seriously suggesting I would go out with your brother? He's married. Plus, he's in Manhattan. You're talking silly. You must have been seeing things, 'cause I never went to a cafe. Maybe you mistook someone else. Poor baby. For a second, I almost believed her. Until I smelled Doug's cologne on her. From that moment on, I knew I had to prove it. I talked with Doug's wife. My parents, my friends, none of them believed me. They all said I was just jealous of Doug and all his achievements, that I was trying to bring him down because I could never be as great as him. None of them wanted to hear what I had to say. So, instead of convincing them, I thought I would show them. I saved up for months. I bought Rosie a necklace I knew she would love. Something I knew she would want to show off and wear every day. Only, I hid something in it. On our anniversary, I gave it to her, and she jumped for joy and squealed like a pig. Oh my God! I thought you were gonna propose! But this necklace is so much better, honey! Oh my God, it's so beautiful! It must have been so expensive! Oh, I love it! I'm gonna wear it every day. I'm glad you like it. I love you, sweetheart. I'm sorry for doubting you. I'll never do that again. Happy anniversary. Rosy was so proud of her necklace, she showed everyone at the restaurant. And that was the night my plan began. For weeks, there was nothing. Until one night, it finally happened. Rosy dressed up in a nice dress and told me she was going out with friends. I told her to have fun, and I settled in for a night of spying. She did meet up with her girlfriends. The only difference is that Doug was with them too. He took them to a yacht where they all had dinner. Doug was kissing all the girls, and he was telling Rosy all about his plan to leave his wife for her. And then they all went to a club, and I knew exactly where it was. I drove so fast to that club, I could have been flying. And when I got there, I confronted Rosy and my brother. What are you doing here? Putting an end to whatever this is. What are you talking about? We just happened to bump into Doug just now. Didn't we, girls? They all nodded. Stop lying to me! I ripped the necklace off of Rosy's neck, opened it up, and showed her the camera I hid inside. I synced it up with my phone and showed them all the footage. Rosy was speechless. Doug grabbed my phone and threw it into the street. It was immediately crushed by a passing car. I smiled. Too late for that, brother. I've already sent it to everyone we know, including your wife. Doug grabbed me by my collar and raised his fist, but Rosy stopped him. He's not worth it, Doug. You know what? Have your spying, and your lying, and whatever else it is you have. Lord knows you don't have much. You want to ruin our lives? Do it. You'll only suffer more. You will never, ever be like your brother. He's rich, handsome, successful. What will you ever become? You'll always be an intern. You know, I thought I landed a big fish when I learned you were gonna be a lawyer. But here we are. You're still an intern, living in my apartment and eating my food. Have your moment, 'cause it will be all that you will ever have. Meanwhile, I will have your brother and a life that you could never, ever afford. Somehow, she was right. I may have won. I may have proven to everyone that Rosy was cheating on me, and that Doug was cheating on his wife. But I was still back to where I was, and now I was homeless too after Rosy chucked me out of the apartment. So I worked hard. I stopped being a mess at work. I studied day and night. I slept in the office. I had nowhere else to go. And then, one day, my boss found out, and I told her everything. I thought she was a cold witch, but it turned out she had a heart hiding in there. She took me in and taught me everything she knew. Before long, I got promoted, and she chose me to be her second chair for a huge trial. And guess who was the lawyer defending the accused? Doug, my brother. I was even more determined to crush him, with all the world watching, and with Rosy in the courtroom every day supporting him. All our friends showed up on his side of the benches, and I knew it was my one shot at proving them all wrong. I had many sleepless nights. I pored through every page of evidence we had, until I saw something everyone overlooked. That last day in court, I called the accused to the stand. Miss Kelly, is it true that on the day of the heist, you said you were in the bathroom at 4 p.m? Yes. What were you doing there? Washing my hair. Why is that important? And you didn't see anything unusual? Hear anyone come in? No, I told you I was in the bathroom. Where were you before you got home? I was at the salon. Doing what? Getting a perm! What does this have to do with anything? And have you gotten many perms before? Yeah, duh. Every year since I was 10. Objection, Your Honor! Why is this relevant? And it is also true, Miss Kelly, that the first rule of perm maintenance is that you can't wet your hair for at least 24 hours after getting one at the risk of deactivating the ammonium thioglycolate. Miss Kelly started to realize what I was doing. I could see the panic in her eyes. True, but... And wouldn't someone who's had a perm every year since they were 10 know that? And if, in fact, you weren't washing your hair that afternoon like you said you were, because, as we can all see, your curls are still intact, wouldn't you have heard someone shattering the window and breaking in? Because otherwise, what, Miss Kelly, were you actually doing at 4:28 on the Saturday afternoon that the diamonds in your father's vault disappeared? Miss Kelly broke. She began to cry, and she pointed at a woman in the benches. Rosy. Father was gonna run off with all the fortune with that girl! I couldn't take it! I was the legitimate heir, and he was leaving me destitute! For that homewrecker! Everyone gasped, but none of them were as shocked as Doug. I won the case. But more than that, Rosy was exposed for being the lying, cheating gold digger that she always was. And my family and friends finally saw. My name was in every paper, every news report. I had won the trial of the century. Girls lined up for me. Even Rosy begged me to help her with Doug and her ruined life. My friends and family begged for my forgiveness. But I didn't care. I got what I wanted. And I didn't want people like that in my life. They all underestimated me. So, I turned to the only person who saw my potential. My boss. She and I got married, and now we're partners in our own successful law firm.